Understanding taxonomy can be pretty hard, and having cases where the two most closely related living animals are this different, you're not to blame. But don't worry, analogies are your ally. To be precise, boxes and trees.
Huh?
All these boxes represent what's called the taxonomic ranks, different hierarchical levels where groups of animals are placed together, forming what's known as taxon. When one population or more of a given animal are found to share traits, they make up a taxon. The key here are common traits, or in a more technical term, characters. There are a bunch of characters that scientists look at when trying to classify life. But in the last years, the main indicator of whether two animals were closely related or not were genes. Genes. Technology made it possible to extract the DNA of two creatures and compare them in order to fact-check if they have something in common. So this whole thing could be summarized in the following question. What should animals have in common in order to be considered closely related to one another? Their habitat, how they look, how they behave, etc. To represent all these relationships between taxa, scientists have come up with this. This is the taxonomic tree of life, representing the relationships and connections between all living beings, even the extinct ones. All this information and technicality probably sounds pretty confusing, so let's get into the analogy and use boxes together with a simplified version of a tree. In a given ecosystem, or to put it simple, in a given geographical area, in a given place, we'll probably find different populations of a certain animal. These dots representing animals have the same shape, color, and border texture. We can call this one population of this animal, and these two populations share certain traits, and therefore they are placed into the same box. This box becomes a taxon. In a moment we'll be back to it and give it a name, but for now let's look at the other side of this ecosystem place. These other animals also have different populations across this land, but as you can see, they are different. These populations, however, make up a new taxon, different from the taxon circle. These two different taxa receive a name. They're at the bottom of the hierarchy and the narrowest of all ranks, as they comprise much less creatures than the upper rank. This first level is the species rank. Here, then, we've got two different boxes representing and containing all the animals square and circle. Now, if we look closely, we'll see that both taxa do have something in common. They share the color trait. So, square and circle aren't just two species, but they are connected. As they share traits, we can put them both into the same second taxonomic rank, the box that contains the species rank called genus. In their tree, both species will be connected by a line at the genus box, indicating that the species belong to the same genus. This will be happening all throughout the tree. Animals will only pop up at the end of the tree, with simple lines guiding us through the path of a particular species. Genus and species are the technical names of the words, always in Latin, used as the scientific name of an animal. We'll talk about these question marks later, but for now, you're probably wondering how did both circle and square end up having the same trait, in this case, color. It's the perfect time to talk about another two key concepts in modern day taxonomy, the concept of the last common ancestor and the concept of hereditary trait. Introduced by Charles Darwin in his most important book, the LCA hypothesis states that two given organisms must have evolved from another ancient organism thousands or millions of years ago, or in some cases much closer in time. It's not that these organisms can be precisely traced, and are more often than not it works as a guide or approximation for scientists of what the evolutionary past of an animal probably might have looked like. At the same time, the concept of hereditary traits states that each generation of a given creature that reproduces sexually will progressively inherit their parent's genome and hence their trait. In the case of most animals, these genes will not be passed on to the next generation as a copy. Instead, they're a mixture of those genes from the mother and those from the father, and hence the younger generation isn't an exact copy of their parents, developing unique traits over time. This isn't the case in all living beings, not even in all animals. So, what does it mean? Using these two theories, we would explain the fact that these two species share traits because at some point in history, there must have existed an animal with certain traits. With time, these traits changed, resulting in unique species with a common past from which these traits can be traced. As the geographical area gets bigger and we go beyond the limits of this area, more and more remotely related animals start to be seen. And this has to be shown by all three. If we move higher along the lines, we'll get to the next rank, family. As you can see here, our friends circle and square are included within this box, but so does the whole branch of the tree. Do you remember those question marks we talked about earlier? Here are a bunch of them, in the same family box, a circle and square, but in a different genus box, resulting in different species. What's this family box about? Tone. For whatever reason, far from our previous ecosystem, these creatures developed a darker tone than that of circle and square, but as you can see here, they still share the same color somewhat. A different tone can be assigned to this branch of the family than that of this one, though they still share traits which make them to be closely related but not that much as square and circle. Now we can reveal the next question marks. This time they branch off higher in the tree, from the order box. All of these animals are included in one taxonomic order, while all of these belong to a different one. As you've probably noticed, what changes here is the size. The animals on this side of the tree are much smaller than those on this side, but as you can see, they still share things as they are somewhat blue and have a particular shape, and within each box the same keeps happening. At the family level, different tones appear. At the genus box, the animals of the same color are grouped together, leading up to the species themselves at the bottom of the tree. When it comes to the final question mark, we stumble upon a pink animal. What does this mean? That's in the film rank where the color palette changes. All these animals are within blue tones and shapes, while all these are pink. Let's remember that this is a simplified version of a tree, as otherwise we'd have way more animals and branches that would take a lot of time to explain. But this is how taxonomic trees work, grouping in the same boxes all the animals that share traits and doing the same upwards. Those ranks, boxes, at the top of the tree will comprise much more animals than those at the bottom. So all the animals here belong to different species. They are grouped in boxes according to their color, tone, size, and color palette. Animals represent a whole taxonomic kingdom with the surprisingly original name of Animalia, different from the plants or fungi kingdom. In our simplified taxonomic tree, this whole chunk of it belongs to the same big orange box. If this whole kingdom received a name, it would be the shape kingdom, given that the trait that all animals in this box share is simply to be a shape. A different kingdom could be one that was made of numbers, for instance. Why would I put numbers together with circles, squares, or stars? They belong to a totally different and humongous box, the number kingdom, with a gazillion amount of animals shaped like 1s, 3s, 20s, etc. And if we take a look at the first taxonomic rank, the domain, we'd see that both taxonomic kingdoms are included within the same humongous red box. This is shown by the fact that the line is the same at this point of the tree. Why? Because no matter how different these two might look, they still share some of their colorful things contained within a particular line. We could think of other domains, for instance with black and white creatures or without defined borders. Now, there's a little quirk right above and below the taxonomic ranks. There are some particular boxes that aren't big enough to be considered the rank above and aren't small enough to be the rank below. The former are identified with the prefix super, and the latter with the prefix infra. The most known of these are subspecies, animals that are extremely similar to another one, but certain traits make them different, though not enough to be another species. Instead, they're subspecies. Do you remember these two animals I mentioned at the beginning of the video, and the fact that they were the most closely related animals to one another? Let's look at our tree and create a specific scenario to understand this. Circle is the most closely related animal to square and vice versa. Triangle, heart, and hexagon are also the most closely related creatures one to the other. The same happens within each genus box. Now, what would happen if circle didn't exist anymore? The closest relatives of square would be triangle, heart, and hexagon. The key here is the word living. Square is now the only extant member of this genus box that could be named light blue, so to find the closest living relative of a square, we have to move higher in the tree, past the genus box and right into the family box. There we find heart, triangle, and hexagon. And what if this whole genus disappeared? We'd have to keep climbing up to the tree to the next taxonomic rank order. At this point, the animals are quite different from one another as they have different size, color, and tone. These are pretty noticeable traits as we are simply talking about 2D shapes, no offense, but in animals, different orders might mean even more extreme differences. This is the case of elephants and manatees. Since the most closely related animals to elephants like mammoths and mastodons became extinct, we have to climb higher on the tree to find the closest living relative of elephants. Both animals end up belonging to the same superorder box, a superorder that groups different species of animals that originated in the African continent, such as the aardbaks and shrews, apart from our two stars, among others. To reach that superorder point, then, we have to go through species, genus, family, order, and then superorder. The higher you go, the longer they had to develop different traits, and living in the water or land are some pretty huge differences to begin with. So next time you think about how closely related two or more animals are, think out of the box.